What if you never lose the weight? Will you ever be able to feel like you're enough or successful again? I'm going to get into it right now. But first, welcome to the Body Ally podcast. I'm your host, Kerrie Nygard. On the Body Ally podcast, we learn how to stop battling with our bodies and with food from a faith-based approach and also backed by brain science. And we're learning instead how to be an ally with our bodies, except her. Let's get into it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to share a personal experience that just happened this morning. And I'm going to talk about this core thread that runs through every single human being and how I see it show up with the women that I work with. And I've worked with thousands of women, over 1,400 women who've paid to work with me, and then tens of thousands of women through lots of online content that I provide. So I've been in this space with a lot of women over a good several years, okay? So based upon my experience, what I have found, and this has been, other people agree with me that's in the therapy, counseling, and life coach arena, is that if you ask why enough times, given any problem or issue that someone's having, any internal battle, any shame, any guilt, any worry that they're experiencing in their life, if you get in there and just dig far enough, eventually you'll get to the same core theme. And what this core theme is fear or worry or concern about not being enough. Now, this can show up in lots of different ways. It can show up in lots of different themes, and it'll show up for everybody in different ways. For women who have chronically dieted, it shows up like this. If I never lose the weight, or if I can't maintain the weight loss, then I'll never get to feel like I am enough. I'll always fall short if I can't get this one thing in place. I can't feel settled in life until I get to this place, that my body looks a certain way or weighs a certain amount. Can't feel successful in life, can't feel confident, can't feel like I'm enough. I am not validated or acceptable until this thing happens. And it all comes down to feeling like you're enough, that you're acceptable. Now, there's two different approaches that I have on here. There's my old school approach, which is still absolutely true. And then I'm going to share with you kind of this newer way within the last maybe year or two as I've come to realize and work with all these women and doing my own self-coaching as well. And I'm going to talk to you about what I discovered in myself this morning, how I saw this very same theme running through myself and what I did about it totally turned my day around. What began as a rotten, terrible feeling day turned around through a really simple process and how I addressed the same theme of feeling like I'm not enough showing up in my life this morning. So stay with me so you can use this same process for yourself. All right, so first, the old school way. When someone says, oh, if I dig enough, and I ask why enough, say in a coaching session, and we discover, oh, they're feeling like they say they're feeling like they're not going to be enough. Usually this comes across as, how will I ever feel like I'm enough if I can't get this weight off? Or I'll never get to feel confident, or I'll never get to like myself if I can't get to this, if I can't reach this goal, which by the way is only a health goal, which I'm all about. If you've listened to any more than one of my podcasts, you know that I'm all in on reaching health goals, but those are separate from accepting our bodies and accepting ourselves. Completely different. Diet mentality is in diet culture, societal standards is what sells this idea of until your body looks a certain way, you can't love, accept, or appreciate her fully. You can only maybe a little bit appreciate her, but not completely appreciate her unless she looks a certain way or looks or gets really close to this made up ideal beauty standard. Ironically, I was teaching in Sunday school. I teach the teenagers at church, and we were talking about the children of Israel and we're studying the Old Testament this year in Sunday school. And we were talking about the children of Israel and how they were led through the Red Sea on dry ground, right? That God parted the Red Sea. And we talked about how God fed them with manna, how God provided water through by gushing forth from the rock. We talked about all the ways that God provided. And when they got tired of manna, God provided meat from the birds, right, for them. God provided all of these things, yet they continued to fall back into their old ways. And one way in which they did this was they began to worship, and they constructed a golden calf. Moses went up to receive a higher law from God on Mount Sinai, and he came down and realized they're not ready for this law. And so he then produced the 10 Commandments. And the 10 Commandments are fantastic and amazing, and they've blessed human mankind for eons, for thousands of years ever since. The point here, though, I want to talk about is that they were worshiping a golden calf. And you think, how stupid is that? They made the thing. Why would they worship the thing? Why would they think that something that they made from their own hands has the power to do anything for them at all? Wouldn't they want to appeal to something that's outside of what they've created? Here's the thing, though, is that if we can create it, we can control it. Within every single one of us is this innate need to be able to control. And if we can control something, then we can have a sense of safety in this life. And not only that, if we can control it and then feel safe, thus we have created for ourselves a false god. Now, false gods can take lots of different shapes and forms. It's where you spend your time, your focus, your resources, and it can take lots of different forms in this life. But I want to point out is that when we focus in on changing our bodies, thinking that we don't get to be enough in this world until our body looks a certain way, have we not also set up a health goal or our own God-given gifts, our bodies, manipulated through this societal, worldly standard to thus become an idol in of itself, or the pursuit of a health goal become an idol in of itself, thinking that I don't get to feel enough in this world until this happens. Do you see how that has occurred? I talk all the time about how diet mentality and diet culture distorts your worth, distances you from yourself and God, and it also causes you to get distracted from your true purpose. That golden calf that had no ability to save anyone became a distraction from the God who actually could save them and take them into the promised land. So there's lots of irony here, but we can also see the same things within ourselves, and we can see how it shows up in regards to diet mentality, diet culture. It's a health goal. You have a body that's a gift from God, and you're absolutely 100% worthy and acceptable right now. And separate from that, you have a health goal. Okay, and that's how I would teach it. So we get to this place of, oh, I'm not enough. I would talk about, well, enough according to whose standards and who gets to decide who's enough. Right? We kind of delve into it and kind of deconstruct this idea of what does it even mean to be enough. And this is helpful. It helps us realize that it's just made up standards, made up ideas, expectations that create this imaginary ruler of what enough is, right? At what point do we reach enoughness, right? That's made up. Who decides? Well, we get to decide. And so this is how I would normally coach and teach someone. But I changed it. I still do that, but I've added to it a more fuller sense, because I've thought over the years, why is this core in every single human being? Why does everybody have it? They may not speak those exact words when they describe it, and they might hide that part of themselves, but everyone has experienced shame. And if you've experienced shame, which is everyone in this life, then you have this part deep down that you worry that there's part of you that needs to be hidden. See, the difference between shame and guilt is that guilt is telling you that your actions are not aligned with your values. And that can be helpful. Shame, however, says that there's something inherently wrong with you and that you need to hide it. That you need to hide some part of yourself or you will be rejected. So guilt says something's not aligned, something's not right, and shame says you inherently something is wrong with you. Guilt's helpful. I have not found a helpful utility for shame other than maybe people keeping their clothes on in public, or I don't know, right? I haven't found a utility to shame. There's so many different emotions, and emotions have utility to them. Some are really helpful. I like to think of emotions as tools in a tool bag. And guilt, there are times it's not helpful, and there are times when it can be helpful. Shame, however, I've never found an application for shame where it's helpful. Okay, so I've talked about the old school way of how I would address this core thread of not being enough or fear of not being enough. Let me talk about the new way I approach it in conjunction with this, kind of an adjunction to this, that's more complete. if this is found within every single human being, then perhaps it's there by divine design. Now, stick with me. I'm not purporting to, I'm not teaching doctrine here. This is just my idea. And then you can decide if you like it and you can keep it. Give me credit if you remember. But I think that inside every single human being is this fear or worry of not being enough, because that very thing causes us to reach out to a higher being. That feeling of not being enough is what allows us to be attracted back to our Maker. And because our Maker loves us so much, and because we need to draw near to our Savior in order to become whole or complete, then that feeling of not being enough is the very thing that causes us to connect with Jesus, to reach out to Him, to allow His grace to take over, to allow His name to cover us. Thus, in lots of ways, in one way, of course you're enough. God created you, therefore you're enough. Yet, in another way, yes, you exist, therefore you're enough. But in another way, you're not enough. You're not supposed to be enough. That's why you need Jesus. And so allow this place of not feeling enough to be an invitation for you to draw near to God, to link arms with Jesus, to allow Him to cover you. So let me get into how this showed up for me this morning. So there's a project that I've been working on and I've been working on. It's actually in my business. And sometimes it works really well and sometimes it doesn't work well, and it's been inconsistent and I can't quite find the factors that make it successful or not successful. And it's been just a real pain point for me. And recently, this week, it was not as successful as I was hoping for. Just marketing, spreading the word of what I'm doing. And I woke up this morning, I went to bed last night feeling this way, and then I woke up this morning feeling this way. It was this anxious feeling. And so what did I do? If you just allow those feelings to spin out inside, they just become amplified, because that's how thoughts work. The more you think them, the more they amplify the emotion that the thought created. The more I worry about the situation, the bigger the anxiousness becomes. But if I can get it out of my head and on paper in the physical world, or speak it out loud so I can hear it, now it's something in front of me that I can look, that I can conceptualize. So next to my bed, I have a journal, and first I prayed. Why did I pray? Because God knows everything that I'm experiencing. He understands it all. He knows me perfectly. So first I prayed to God for help, and then I pulled out my journal and I wrote down what I was feeling, and that I was feeling fear that this project wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. And I asked myself, what am I so afraid of? Like, what's the problem? So what? It didn't do well. We'll try something different, or try some, right? We'll try a few other things, right? Fail forward, right? Not be afraid of failure, right? But guess what? That common human theme that runs through every single one of us, there it is. It reared its head again. And as I wrote and asked myself, what am I afraid of? I wrote out, and this is what came out. This is what comes out when you open yourself to journaling without judging yourself. You can't judge yourself when you're journaling about what's going on inside. If you judge yourself, you'll hit a dead end. You won't be able to access it. And this thought came out, if I don't get this figured out, it means I've done it wrong and that I'm not enough. I should have been able to do this differently so that this didn't fail again. This failure, or this lack of level of success that I wanted with this thing, is evidence that I am doing it wrong, because there's something inherently wrong with me. And my brain showed me all the different things that I should have done differently. Oh, if you'd done this differently and that differently, and a whole year ago you should have done this differently, and why did we ever do that? And Kerrie, you're just not enough, and you're not organized enough, and you're not disciplined enough. And my brain just told me all the different ways in which I'm not enough. And then, as I looked at that, I began to question it. In what ways is this telling me that maybe I am enough? What am I doing that's actually proof that I'm moving forward? And then when I asked myself this question, your brain hates unanswered questions. When you ask your brain a really useful question, it will move for your benefit. So as soon as I asked my brain a helpful question, like, am I seeing this wrong? In what ways could this actually be exactly the way it's supposed to go? All of a sudden, your brain will start to construct a story that will support the idea that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, when you do this with God, you'll feel the Spirit directing you in this journaling process, and you'll be way more productive than if you don't ask for help. Okay? You can get, some things done journaling without it, but if you pray beforehand, in my experience, it's way more effective, because God, and ask the Spirit to direct you through it. And all of a sudden, I went from feeling heavy and sad to feeling hopeful, to feeling excited, to feeling what? Exactly where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be. That I'm not perfect, that I'm not enough, and I'm not supposed to be enough. And I'm on a journey where God is guiding, leading, and teaching me. And this is part of the curriculum for my life right now, this project thing I'm working on, okay? So in your own life, what is it that you're making your weight loss mean? Are you making it mean that you don't get to feel confident or successful or enough in this life? Are you thinking that you don't get to feel free until you reach this thing? It very well may be that that's just a reflection of your deep inner thread of a fear of not being enough. And I would say you're not supposed to be enough. That was never the plan. The plan was for you to reach out for Jesus. And if you felt like you were completely enough, you would never be motivated or ever see the need for God in your life. So I have decided that it's by divine design that those feelings of being not enough are within us, and that those feelings are an invitation to reach out and link arms more fully each time this comes up with Jesus. All right, ladies, give that a try. And remember, you are not sent here on this life to struggle with food and with your body. Instead, you were sent here to thrive and create and live out God's plan for you. Ladies, the Body Ally movement cannot spread unless people help spread the word. Share this podcast with others. Share this episode with others. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Instagram. Text it to your friends that you think would appreciate it. Also, if you will leave comments, if you will rate the podcast, if you rate the podcast, that's fantastic. The more ratings that there are, the more people who rate it, and rate it a 5-star. The more you rate it, the more it will show up in front of people's faces. So I ask you to help me invite other women to accept their bodies as the gift that God intended, to align with them as an ally and a partner in this life by sharing this word with others. All right, ladies, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.